basically the model that you guys have proposed is, you're looking at the flat Earth map, and you've looked at all the different variations of it, and of course, you are unable to see how the position of the sun could possibly be coherent with what ground observations are. So you have basically proposed the idea, and correct me if I'm wrong in this, that what is actually going on here is that the sun is some sort of a projection that is being projected in at kind of a polarized light angle, and then is being more or less guided via either Faraday effect or just being guided by the magnetic flux lines of a toroid, right? And as a result of that, when you do that, and there are so many toroidal flux lines in the magnetic field, that everybody virtually has their own customized view of the sun and its apparent position. And I use the word apparent strongly because that's exactly what it is. It is apparent. We're not actually looking at the sun. Of course, I've said this many times, but we're looking at an apparent position that is unique and special to each and every one of us. Would you guys say that that is a fairly fair assessment of the proposition?
Yes.
I would agree with that too, sure. Yeah, I think one thing that always comes into my mind when I try to visualize a system from, 50,000 miles up off to the side is, even if I'm looking at an AE map, which is what I use, just a standard AE type of map. I've used several different ones. Looking at it from that distance, and putting the sun at what I have around 4,000 miles up, and the moon too around that area, and then just imagining that the atmosphere is 100 to 200 miles thick. When you model that, you don't even see the atmosphere. I mean, it's like a saran wrap on top of the ground, because of the distances. And that's where I believe the sun image is being created. Where the light is being created, where the heat is being created, but the generator of that is higher than that, and in a more of a gasless environment. So there's really no light happening in between those areas. But so what we see is much lower than what it really is. And if we're seeing it at an angle, because of a rising time or a setting time, then it's even lower still.
Okay. Yeah, I would agree with that. Now, one thing that I was thinking, and I agree with you that the sun is obviously, I personally do not believe that the sun is a physical object, or if it is somehow being projected down through into this reality by a combination of possibly a crystal that would make up the firmament, or it could be strictly an EM field, the top of the toroid, if you will. But I tend to believe that there's a kind of a composite. I tend to think that there is a firmament, and it is crystalline in structure, and this would actually explain a lot of what Chris has come up with, in his multiple forward projection images of the eclipse. But once it makes the trek through that, then we're dealing with the top of the toroidal field in the electromagnetic portion of the Earth plane, and it is being distributed then through each one of those individual flux lines, and giving us each our own warmth and our own perception of, or perspective of, where the sun actually is.
And with regards to the flux lines, the two celestial poles, you can create that by putting a charged surface in the sky, with a current flowing from the North Pole to the South Pole. When you look in one direction, there will be a centrifugal field around that charged surface that's spinning in one direction, and if you turn around and look the other side, it's still spinning in the same direction, but visually it's in the other direction. And that's how you create the two celestial poles.
Yes.
And everything is just created from projected from an outside projection inside that electromagnetic field. And where you stand on the map is basically your projection field in the sky. And that's two centrifugal fields. If you start walking from north to south, you'll have the northern celestial pole behind you, and you will start seeing the southern celestial pole coming up in frame or in visual. You know, you have to get over the equator to see it, but that's how you create two celestial poles, by putting a charged surface in the sky, and that creates those centrifugal fields, and those centrifugal fields can carry all the motions for every object in the sky.
Yes, absolutely. And that is, I could not agree with you more on that, because in my view, what we're looking at here is the Earth is basically a giant capacitor, if you will. We've got the ground itself, the Earth ground itself, not only acting as the dielectric inertial plane, but as acting as the cathode in this circuit. And the sky, of course, would be the anode. And you know, I find it interesting that, you know, I know you follow Electric Universe also, and you know, they seem to be so close to this, you know, to figuring all this out. They know that everything is an electrical manifestation. They're certain of that. They're proving it left and right, but they just seem to need to scale it way down and kind of enclose us and put us inside of our little box, you know, so that we can actually maintain an atmosphere. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that the sun is the main generator for the entire system. You know, every time the sun goes around, it gives off its energy to the nearest object, the stars, planets, or whatever. And whenever it's night, we see the redundant energy glow from the energy from the sun that has just passed by in the sky, because it's all a projection.
So I agree that when you can call it the celestial sphere, if you will, right? The ether or the firmament being a phase of light, and the greater light, and it's coming into a focal point in our realm, and it appears in the sky, and it does it because where the electromagnetic fields interact with the gases, noble gases in our atmosphere plane. That's where we see images appear, because you need a medium in order for there to be light. There has to be some sort of medium to react with it electromagnetically. So it's exactly like a double toroid type of environment, and our focal points are wherever we look. Like the water in the air is similar to the water in our eyes, and our eyes register it as electric interactions, and our brains interpret that electrically to our minds, and that's what we see.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.